Wow, Jackson, Mississippi has failed to disclose the names of 20 homicide victims. This is interesting. Why is this? Is it because the police were somehow involved in the deaths of these people and they don't want the families to find out? I mean, how many missing people are there that has actually been killed by the cops?
An investigation by a CNN affiliate has revealed Jackson, Mississippi's police department did not publicly disclose the names of dozens of homicide victims this year. We recently told you about Dexter Wade, a man in Mississippi who was hit and killed by a Jackson Police Department vehicle and buried without his family's knowledge. Wade's mother told me about when police finally contacted her about her son months later.
Well, when they first called me and said we found Dexter, I said, "Oh Lord, let him be okay." So I said, "Where he at, or what's going on with him?" She said, "Well, I'll let Officer Gerard come out there and talk to you." And right then, when she said that, it's just my heart dropped because I knew, I just knew that he was deceased.
New reporting by CNN affiliate WLBT has now revealed a similar case. 40-year-old Mario Moore was killed in February, buried in the same pauper's field where Dexter Wade was buried. Moore's family did not find out about his death until October, after seeing his name in WLBT's reporting on more than 20 homicide victims that Jackson police did not disclose to the public. Joining me now.
Wow, this is just unimaginable. How are these cops able to get away with not reporting these the names of these victims to their families? How how can they do this? Well, honestly, it's obvious. It's black people. These cops are racist, being that it's freaking Mississippi. Still one of the most racist places, states you can be in. So yeah, it's no wonder these cops are doing very little when it comes to black victims. That's why Dexter Wade was murdered by the cops and then buried in an unmarked grave while the cops tried to cover up their crimes. And has that cop even been found to what cop has murdered Dexter Wade? I don't even know.
Is the investigative reporter who brought this to light, CJ LeMaster, with CNN's affiliate there in Jackson. CJ, good to see you. This is, I want to say unbelievable, but not. It is heartbreaking. Tell us this story, because unlike Dexter Wade, who was killed by an off-duty officer, this man, Mr. Moore, was found dead and then reported to police. What's his story?
So what happened here is a situation where he was killed by blunt force trauma. That's what we know. He was found wrapped in a tarp on a street in the western part of the city. And at that point, police claimed they did not. There were conflicting reports as to whether there was even ID found on him. But suffice it to say, it took some time for them to identify him. But at that point, all we know from the captain who was in charge of detectives for the department, he told us in an interview that essentially they sent a detective to a home that they found in connection with Moore. They left a card, and that was it. There was no follow-up. We pressed the captain for this in one of our interviews, and he didn't really have any explanation. He said, well, that is sufficient. Now, we know now that since all this had happened, since NBC and other national news agencies have picked up the story as well, that now the city of Jackson, the police department, for the first time has a death notifications policy, a 6-page policy. So that came out of this, but it took the family not finding out about this until October.
Well, it just goes to show that the cops won't do anything whatsoever that they actually should be doing unless they're exposed for how lazy and how corrupt they are, and then they will scramble and panic to make it seem like they actually care. This and the departments, the police departments of Jackson, Mississippi, should be heavily investigated by several outside organizations to find and weed out these extremely corrupt and murderous cops and bring them to justice.
For any of this to happen and for the ball to be rolling. And I got to tell you, Victor, this is something. It was one thing for us to find out that there were 24 individual victims, 22 cases that the public, that we had not been told about. But to find out that one of those was a situation where the family wasn't told either, like you said, it's heartbreaking. You can't fathom that.
Yeah. Let's listen to Mario Moore's sister, Marquita, here on what she expected from police.
How many times do you come back to notify the family if you did come here? Did you come back the next day? Did you try to follow up on your reports?
And so what is the department doing now? These 24 individual victims, we now know that Moore's family has been notified. Are they trying again to reach out to the next of kin of these people?
So at this point, we don't know. In fact, the department has, as you might imagine, been fairly tight-lipped since these investigations have come forward, since these two cases in particular have garnered such national attention. The department only speaking through a city spokesperson at this point. But it seems, at least going forward, that this will be happening. But even when I tried to get information about these 24 victims, so we could even put that out there to try and help detectives, because you would think that detectives would need that information to the public so they could garner leads, they could look forward to developments in the case. We got very little. I'm saying maybe a paragraph's worth of information. And so that's part of the problem here. We talked to the captain about this, Captain Abraham Thompson, who, by the way, after our story came out, I think a day later, he was shifted. He's no longer over detectives in the department. He's not over a single certified officer, but he told.
Wow, that is very telling that the moment a report about such a person comes out and then they're immediately shifted to a different position, that department is trying to do a whole lot of public relations damage control. So there is something going on that they're trying to hide.
Told us, he said, well, I'm not even really that frustrated that information didn't get out, because we don't want to put a time frame on solving these cases. And that sort of flies in the face of what you're familiar with, I'm sure, people, the first 48 hours are the most crucial when it comes to investigating homicides.
Yeah. And what more is Jackson saying?
Well, when it comes to black people, the first 48 hours doesn't matter. It's the first 48 years, I guess.
About this specific case and what they are planning to do as they move forward. You say this new 6-page protocol.
So this new 6-page protocol, we actually just got a copy of it not long ago. I want to say it was a day or so ago that we finally got a copy of it through a records request. And essentially, it puts Jackson in line with other agencies, with other cities, frankly, smaller than Jackson, that requires every effort to be made to be able to contact these individuals when something happens. Keep in mind that the city actually has blamed this on a miscommunication, on a failure of communication, if you will, but recently has shifted that to blaming the coroner's office, because according to statute, the coroner's office does have responsibilities in notifying the family. And so what we saw with the Dexter Wade case, what we're seeing now with the Mario Moore case, is that there's this shifting of blame to the coroner's office. The coroner's office, as you might imagine, not returning our calls, not saying anything publicly about this. Yeah. We may see more details when it, I would assume, becomes litigated at some point. Obviously, Ben Crump has been retained by both families here, and so hopefully we'll learn some answers through that. But it's certainly been incredibly frustrating to not really know and have any accountability in something like this.